Here we go.
We're live.
Well, Tim, I'm so glad to sit down here with you and have a real and an honest conversation, which is really funny. We have cameras on and we're recording what we're saying. I don't know that I've ever had a non-real, honest conversation with you. And I would think that most of the people that have ever met you would say the same thing. So,
Well, I learned from the best. My dad was a very authentic man, and I learned from the best too. I just want to do the best I can, man.
yeah.
Yep.
So for those that are listening or watching here, why don't you just tell us where we are and who you are?
Okay, my name is Tim Lapp. I'm just an ordinary guy that's lived an extraordinary life.
Yeah.
I've been extremely blessed by the best, and had a great upbringing here. I mean, with Lapp Electrical Service is the name of the business that we're at right now. We're in the warehouse, just chilling out here, having a great conversation with one of my best friends here, Matt Steller. But no, it's not Matt Steller. Joshua Malott here. And no, it's so my dad started the company in 1969 when my mom was probably 6 months pregnant with my twin brother and I.
Wow.
And think about that. I always think about how, because I have twins as well, so I'm blessed. My Heavenly Father blessed me with twins as well. But I just think about my mom and how she let my dad start a company, and he grew up Amish. It's like, oh yeah, go ahead. Gave him permission to start a company I have an older brother that's a partner in the business with me. His name's Greg, and my twin brother's name is Jeff. But my mom and dad, they were just strong parents, just awesome people. So I've just been fortunate, just very fortunate.
That's awesome. I find that very interesting. When I started one of my businesses many years ago, it was the first one out on my own, and I had a mentor who I would meet with once a week, and he was a businessman, and I didn't want to start a business. But I thought if I asked him, he would say no, because he was in business, and he'd always told me how stupid you had to be in business.
Yeah.
But he gave me some. He was like, no, that sounds like a good idea. And then he gave me one piece of advice, which I think says something about your mom. He said, if your wife isn't on the same page with you about starting a business, then no matter how much it's in you, no matter how much you're wired for it, you can't do it.
So true.
She's got to be on the same page.
And they were married for, oh my goodness, for many years. My dad passed away in 2010. Unfortunately, leukemia took him, and then my mom just 2 years ago. So we lost both our parents right now, but they were just tremendous role models for me. I mean, their marriage was strong. I know they had their occasional arguments, but of course, my dad was a recluse entrepreneur out there creating all these businesses and stuff. So they were awesome.
Yeah.
Miss them.
Yeah. Well, I think, marriage is one of those things that if you don't have some of this, I wonder, and this is just my own experience, but I wonder how real it really is.
I agree. I think the communication is the key. My wife and I talk about that all the time. We're celebrating 30 years this year.
That's a big deal.
30 years. Tell me about it. Thank you, brother. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, we're actually, we love to travel and do all kinds of, we're going to Vietnam this time over our anniversary time. So looking forward to that. So it should be fun.
That will be interesting.
And she's put up with a lot of crap with me too, man. Yeah. So I'm just feel very blessed.
You're probably like me. I feel like I'm married up.
Dude, no doubt about it, brother. I won in the deal.
Yeah.
I won in the deal.
I can remember early on in business, my wife, I would come home from work and either finances were difficult or cash flow was difficult or work was difficult or when I started to grow, HR issues were difficult. And I would come home from work and I would look at her and be like, and this is a shout out to Home Depot. I'd be like, I want to go work at Home Depot. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to quit. This is what I want to do. And she would look at me and I felt called to go into business. We were talking a little bit earlier about our faith and it was weird for me. And it's weird to explain to people that I felt led to go into business. And she said, well, what's the last thing that you heard? If that hasn't changed, then don't change it. And once or twice she was really nice when I came home, because I came home a lot and was like, I want to go to work at Home Depot. And then she turned and became more of what I needed to hear. And she said, why don't you shut up, stop whining about it, and get back to work?
I love that. That's what my wife told me many
I love it
times.
now. I didn't love it then.
Dude, I get that. Yeah, early on in our marriage, I mean, probably the first 10 years, because I was only 24 when I don't think I grew up till I was like 30, until I start slowly learned to mature in my being a husband and a father. But yeah, my wife used to say to me, because I was thinking I was growing the business, helping grow as a second generation.
Yeah.
I got involved. She'd say, "You treat other people better than you treat us."
Ooh.
And I'm like,
Wow.
she had to tell me probably 8 times in the first 10 years till I really.
Yeah.
And you're right, Marissa. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah.
So I learned through that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your origins. Like your dad, how long, what year did your dad start Lapp Electric?
1969.
1969.
So he could be arguably the first ever Amish electrician.
That's a pretty cool shout out right there.
I know there's a lot of Amish electricians out there now, but I mean, my dad could have been.
Well, and depending on where you live in the country and what you might or might not know about Amish, is it fair to say that they don't believe in electricity? Or, I mean, they believe it exists, but they don't use it.
They don't use it in their homes,
Yeah.
but they use it in their businesses if they start businesses, yes.
I don't know if we have time for that discussion,
Exactly.
theology on this podcast.
Right.
So, but
right.
So he went and left the Amish community.
Correct.
And became an electrician.
Yeah, now he never joined the church, so he was not shunned.
Okay.
So where my grandfather and grandmother and my dad's oldest sister were shunned from the Amish because they had joined the church. However, my dad at 16, he was like, you know what? I don't really want to be Amish. I want to get a car and I want to start doing work. And so he worked 3 jobs before. He worked at High Concrete and just as a maintenance guy. And so he learned the trade through going to night school at Thaddeus Stevens. Before it's a two-year accredited school.
Yeah.
He went to night school to learn the trade. And and then he started in 1969 when my mom and dad when my brother and I were in my mother's womb.
Just to give some context of, I know of Lapp Electric because I've grown up in Lancaster County, and the name is synonymous with electrical work, and it also is well known. If there was a big project going on, it was probably Lapp that was doing it. Your name ties with quality, and I'm just doing math here, for more than half a century.
Yeah, 55 years.
55 years.
55 years this year. Yep, 55 years this
wow.
year. Yeah.
That is a big milestone.
It is.
So tell me a little bit about that journey, because you grew up as an electrician's son, and you're not an electrician, which I think is an interesting...
I just played one on TV.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I think, in my college, so I ended up, my brothers and I are first generation going to college. My parents, both of them, never went to college. My mom tried for a year to go to Westchester or for a first semester, and then she didn't have enough money, so she couldn't afford to do it. I don't know. I never felt that my parents pushed me to go to college.
Right.
But it just felt like in 1988, when I graduated from Conestoga Valley, it just felt like, everybody's going to college, right?
Yeah.
That's how they were. So I got into Westchester University, and I studied marketing there. My second year there, I was like, I don't know if I really want to stay here. So I was contemplating quitting school and coming to work, because I had an epiphany, kind of like you were talking about earlier. Epiphany, it said, I want to go into the family business. So I was 20 at the time, and I'm like, because I had worked in the summers, and I hated cleaning trucks and doing all the grunt work, digging ditches, pulling wire. I hated it, but I did it, and mowing lawns and doing all this work. But something inside me was really tugging at my heart, and I said, I just want to be a part of what my dad had started. So and so I did graduate from Westchester in '92, and then came into work in the family business. But at that time, my dad had started a self-storage business, so I was kind of running that business. Wasn't really involved. And then my dad got, unfortunately, was diagnosed with leukemia back in 1998, 99. Then he had the foresight to say to my older brother and I, he's like, maybe you guys want to, I got to look at the future of the company, and I don't know where we're going. So it's like, either I'm going to sell to you and your brother, or I'm going to sell to somebody in the company, or I'm going to sell to somebody outside. Because
And at this point in time, how many employees were in the company? Just
we had
roughly?
60 at that time.
60
We were a
employees.
big company then. We were
Wow.
about an $8 million company at the time. I mean, we
Wow.
were kicking butt, man.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I was like 30 years old, 31 years old at the time. I was just like, no, whatever, Dad. I mean, I made the decision. I took a month because our accountant came to my brother and I and said, you guys, you want to do this? And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I said, give me 2 weeks. I got to really think about this. And then we did. My brother and I signed on the dotted line.
That must have been a lot. Like you're finding out your dad has leukemia, and then wow.
Yeah, I mean,
That had to take some courage, man.
Well, I didn't look at it like that. But thanks for saying that. But I looked at it more like the only reason I got involved in the business, I just wanted to make my dad proud of me. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
I've said that many times over the years. That's it. I didn't look at balance sheets and try to make our company like a $20 million company, multi-branch company. At the time, I was just like, I just want to keep this thing going.
Yeah.
For as long as possible and not screw it up.
Yeah.
My dad had started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, legacy is something that I think is really important. And your dad clearly has left quite a legacy.
Yes,
You know,
indeed.
one of my favorite authors says that legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what those that you affect do with what you've shared with them. And so your dad affected a lot of people, and that's a pretty big legacy to leave.
Amen.
And
That's right.
so, I mean, we were standing here earlier, and one of your warehouse guy here, Dave, was here, and we were talking, and he's been here 18 years.
That's right.
That's impressive. That means you're doing something right.
Well, so it's hard for me to believe. My brother and I were just talking about this about a month or so ago, that we have only 4 of us that are still in the company from prior to 2000, that were hired prior to 2000.
Wow.
And Greg and I took over in 2002 from the company. So a lot of the people that are with us now are not part of my dad's regime, if you will.
Right.
They are my brother and I. And so I'm thankful for his nickname is Shifty here.
That's
I don't know
Dave's
what
nickname?
yeah, but I call him DA.
Shifty?
I call him DA, district attorney. But he's the DA around here. But he's a great. I mean, and we're just so right now though we had 60 people at the time we took over, and with all the things that have happened over the years, obviously.
Yeah, you lived through 2009.
Yeah,
and
we went. That was
boy, that was something, wasn't it?
Oof.
I can remember trying to win work back then, and I felt like I slit my throat and still lost.
Dude, that was the hardest time, when I really felt like a failure in the business.
Oh, man.
Because I thought that we were going to lose the company. We lost $500,000 in 1 year, that year. And we were heavy in debt, too. I mean, so we lost $500,000. We're heavy in debt. And also, we let go of 11 guys in 1 week.
Oh.
My dad had never done that. I was like, are we going to lose the company? This is terrible. I mean,
Wow.
and then a year later, my dad passed away in January of 2010. So it was like, oh my gosh, Lord, help me here.
Wow.
I need help.
Wow.
So, but
How
we're
did you
still here?
Wow. So we're gonna dig a little bit deeper into that because
Yep.
I think there's something there to talk about. So remind me that I want to go back to the
Okay, brother.
2008 conversation.
Okay.
But I want to ask you a question, and this one's a softball. So, but I just want to kind of break it up. And so, if there was one thing, a tool, a piece of gear, and when I say gear, it means it could be a hand tool, it could be a piece of clothing, it could be your silly socks that you're wearing.
You don't like these? I know.
It could be any one of those things. But
Right.
like, if there was one thing that Tim Lapp had to choose, and that was his one thing, what would it be? What can you not live without?
Typewriter. not
are
a
you being
typewriter
serious?
now, but it's keyboard now. Yes.
A keyboard. You're going to have to explain that to us, because everybody that's listening right now is listening on their smartphone or their truck or whatever it is, and they're wondering, what does he mean by a typewriter or a keyboard?
For me, I was never a reader.
Yeah.
All through high school, and I taught my kids when they were really little. I used to say, "Readers are leaders, kids. Readers are leaders." And Dad wasn't reading, so So I learned to start reading. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that I love to compose emails now, or compose and write a book. I wrote a book with a friend of mine and co-author called Shunning to Shining with my friend Sean Smucker, who is an accomplished author. But I really see the value in writing things down and typing notes. So I have my notes in my iPhone.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I have like 4,000 notes in my iPhone.
Yeah.
And I taking pictures too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like to remember stuff and where I've been and stuff. That's another thing too. So let's say maybe it's the iPhone then. I don't want to give Steve Jobs too much
stick
credit.
with the typewriter.
Okay,
Typewriter
all right,
sounds better.
All right, brother.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
That's really cool. Well, I believe that leaders are readers as well. For me, I didn't used to be a reader either. Thank God for Audible.
Amen.
That really,
dude.
Yeah.
I go in the mow zone. I mow my lawn 2.5 hours.
Absolutely.
I call it the mow zone. Put my headphones on. I'm listening, man.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I absolutely love it.
Listening and learning. Listening and learning.
And it's so important because it makes you think about things. It makes you there's so much knowledge out there, and trying to gather that knowledge. It's one of the things in sitting down and having conversations like this. I get to learn a lot from other people, because there are a lot of smart people out there that are way smarter than me. So, yeah,
lots more. But yeah.
So just if you're listening, he just said there's a lot of people out there way smarter than me. He didn't mention himself. He was talking about me. He's like, yeah.
I forgot that. That's right. I should clarify.
Well, no, that's fine. Everybody knows it's true.
All right.
So stepping back into 2008, there you are. You had to lay 11 guys off in 1 week.
Yep.
I've had to lay people off. That is hard to begin with, not to mention 11.
Not fun.
And then, you said the only reason you wanted to do this was to make your dad proud. And so here's his legacy, and you're wondering if it's still going to be there.
Yep.
I told you when we started, I had a question that I thought was the topic of what we wanted to talk about, and I find this really interesting. So my question for you was, Tim, how do you deal with dread? And I'm not talking about Judge Dredd, the Stallone movie, but how do you deal with dread? Because I believe that if other people out there are like me, some mornings I wake up, and it's like dread is literally waiting at the edge of my bed. It's literally, I swing my feet around, I sit them down, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this today. And I think we don't talk about it enough. And you are describing a time that I would believe you were dealing with some dread.
For sure. Especially I think about, my dad and mom, my dad's been gone almost 15 years now. It'll be 15 years in January of 2000, next year. And my mom is now, she'll be 3 years gone in November. And so, I'd be lying if I didn't say that dread has, especially in the business, professionally. I mean, it wanes on me. My dad's legacy. It's like Dad's already proud of me. You don't need to keep on proving yourself, to your dad or mom. So, but what gets me up now is, I would say, the next generation. The next generation, my kids. Now I have grandkids. I mean, I have 2 grandsons, 3 and almost 1 this month. So, man, that's what fires me up now. It's like my son-in-law works with us in the business. He's been with us over 7.5 years now. A nice, great young man. He's given me first 2 grandsons too, along with my daughter, Callie. Shout out to Callie.
Yeah, she probably had something to do with it.
She did, for sure.
Yeah.
And but he's just a tremendous young man, and he's stuck with us for 7.5 years. I mean, and you don't see that very much in this next generation. They like to, and it's not saying anything negative about this next generation because they got to find their opportunities.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't see next generation leaders staying with the same company for more than 8 years typically. I don't know what the stats show.
I would agree. I mean, I don't know the stats either, but
Yeah.
As a business owner, I feel like that's pretty accurate, and it's rare, and maybe that's just for me. But like, so in '08, there you are. You talk about you guys are losing money, and I think this is important to talk about because, you know, for those who might be listening that are business owners, and you know, you talk about asking yourself the question, are we going out of business?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you haven't asked yourself that question in business, and you haven't been in business long enough. And so my question for you is, how did you deal with some of those feelings, especially in '08, because it didn't snap back quickly?
No, it didn't. You know, I think, well, I don't think. I know there's the power of the Holy Spirit in me. You know, I have this, I call it long suffering, a dear friend of mine who's also a business owner. He's been in business, a family business for many years. Taught me that fruit of the Spirit back long suffering or patience. I really believe that's my fruit of the Spirit. And so I'm like, you can do it. If you can take it, you can make it, Tim. Keep on going. You know, the Lord is with you, strengthens you. You know, so that's where I really believe.
So your faith plays a big part of
Oh,
that.
absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
And then also my wife. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, without Marissa, she's been my rock.
How does that work? Like, and I'm not trying to drive painful conversation home, but I do want to bring people value that are listening, and I want to talk about some of these things because the reality is that right now there's a lot of people, even in business in your and my roles, that are out there, and I just know this from conversations that I've had where they're like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep pushing? And so it's like, you know, you say that your wife played a huge part in that. You say that your faith played a huge part in that. And so how did you, can you give me, you know, some more like practicals of you come home and you're having one of those days and your wife is just there and she's helping you out of it. What does that look like?
Now, I'll go back to that period of time that you were talking about, back in 2008, 2009. I remember, or 2010, when my grandfather and my dad passed away 12 days apart from one another. So my grandfather passed away at January 13th of 2010. My dad was 12 days later on the 25th. I remember focusing on waking up and doing 91 sit-ups, because my grandfather was 91 when he passed, and doing 66 push-ups in memory of my dad.
Wow.
I think that I don't know what, you know, I'm not doing that anymore. But it did help me through that time. I know for a fact it did. I mean, there's 91 just to help me process and get through it. And there's something to be said about consistency.
I agree.
Consistency, waking up at the same time every morning, doing the same thing. And I was doing that for about a 2-year period, and I really was in the best shape of my life. I felt better, health-wise, physically, and mentally. So
wow,
that was one thing. But today, that's a great question. I got to think about that. My wife, when I go home, she gives, she does. She listens to me. I guess I have to. When I come home and I'm like after a frustrating day, this is what I say to her. I'm like, honey, I just want to vent. Yeah. I don't need your, I don't want you to have to tell me what to do or your solution, because she's a solution finder. Yeah. My wife is a very sharp young lady, and she can come up with solutions. But I'm like, I just want to vent. Please just let me allow me to vent, and she allows me to vent to her. So
I think that's important that we have people that we can vent to, that we know. One of the cool things about marriage is it's one of those partnerships where you are making a commitment to one another regardless of. So I'm just going to be really honest if you're listening. My wife has made the decision that even though she knows that I'm a bad person.
Think about that.
She knows I'm a bad person in my core, who I am, and she's decided to love me regardless anyway. And so I think it's really important for us to have people like that in our lives. Whether you're married or not, for me, I call them pit friends. I read a book years ago, and the guy said, when you're in the pit and there's that one person that you can call and just let it all out, and they don't judge you for it, and they're there for you. They're there for you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that our society, our culture, and especially in business. Ooh. Do you ever struggle with this? I have this hero complex. So,
of course.
Yeah.
We all, yeah.
I mean, and it's
us guys have that.
I feel like, I just need to be strong for everybody else, and I can't let people see the cracks. And it's I get it when we're leaders that we do need to be strong for the overall group, but there are people on your team, and there needs to be pit-friend relationships in your life.
For sure.
That you can just pull back the curtain and let them see it all.
And not many people have even one person like that. I'm fortunate to have 3.
Me too.
Pit friends.
Me too. So, I think the more that you have now, and listen, you earn them over time.
Of course.
You have to vet those people. You have to know who they are.
Actually, add another. I should say 4.
4. I think that is essential to being able to deal with all of the crap, all of the shit that we have to deal with. About it. I mean, it's and as a business owner, I think the other thing, I'm going to throw out a nugget here, because I love sharing things that I've learned over the years from mentors and people. And I loved older people. When I was a young boy, we lived on a farm, and I would always, and there were farms around us. And so my mom and dad couldn't find me. And I would be over on the farm with the old farmer, walking around talking with him for hours and hours and hours.
You have an old soul, man, bro. Well done. Yeah.
And I can remember being an apprentice, and I would look at people that I thought were successful or where I wanted to be, and it's I want to be near them. I want to hear what they have to say. And so I talked with this one older man, and I would say not only was he a mentor to me, but he also became one of my best friends, and he was probably twice my age, maybe 3 times my age. And he gave me a piece of advice. His uncle was a businessman, and he had shared advice with him, and he owned a construction company, a rather large one, in our area. And he said when he would go home, what he would do is he would stop about 2 blocks away from his house, and he would sit in his truck and just sit there and process out the day, so that when he walked in the door, that the first thing that he said to his wife wasn't all the stuff that he had to process.
My dad was a master at that. I can't flip the switch off, man.
Yeah.
My dad was a master at that.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that...
Are you a master at that too, bro?
I am not a master at it, but I have done it. When I heard that piece of advice, I have done it. And it helped with where we were living at the time. There were blocks. Where we live now, we live out in farmland, and there are no blocks. I'd need to stop 10 miles away. But what I will say is, before you go in the door, sometimes I think it's one of those things you just need to kind of slow your mind, so that when you walk in the door, because it's one thing to walk in the door. Here's what happens if you don't do that. You don't ask your wife if you can vent. You vent when you walk in the door.
Exactly.
And so when you slow your mind, then you're actually having a conversation. And I've had plenty of times when I've done it wrong, where I've walked in the door and my son does something or my daughter does something, and I have this problem with reacting instead of responding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We all have that.
Yeah. And that's what we need to work on, is slowing ourselves down. I think that I'm and in business this can be helpful, I'm very, very, very reactive. I move quickly. But that means that I need to lean in, because that's my default. I need to lean into moving slower. I can't remember who it was, if it was Keaton Turner or if I read it in a book, but I think it might have been on Keaton Turner's podcast. I heard this, wait 48. And so it's wait 48 hours. You had a big decision or you got something going on. And I was oh my goodness. And you would be amazed at how many problems that you think are the end of the world work themselves out
I heard something close to that. I heard like wait 2 hours, especially if you get a text from somebody that really
yeah.
like your wife or something that you want to respond. So my wife will text me sometimes. She'll say, "Oh, I just can you replace the water or the water softener salt?" And I'm like, "Really? You're texting me in the middle of the day for this?" And I'm like, "I want to just not respond, but I still respond." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it." It's
Yeah.
like, I wish I would, because I get all anxious about when
Yeah.
she because I want to. There's nobody else I want to make proud of me now than my
Your
wife.
Come on.
Nobody.
Come on.
No
Yeah.
one else.
Yeah.
I don't care about it. I don't. I mean, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, my wife, I want to please her the most.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I think that's a really good, and you've been married, what, you're going on 30
30
years?
years, man, in September, yep.
I read this recently that we want to serve others more than ourselves. And when we do that in marriage, that's one of the keys to a good marriage. And because if you do that, it encourages the same. And so it's like you do that for your wife, she does that for you. That literally, and here's the deal. We need to change our mindset in how we do that for other people. Because it's not, and especially with our wives, I know what you're talking about. I do have to share this. My wife, I don't know if she listens to these or not, so it might be safe. But,
I don't think my wife's going to listen.
yeah,
She might.
not, yeah.
I mean,
well, that was
send
kind of
it to
like
her.
when I was younger and we would win a big job. She used to get mad at me because I would be so consumed with work and moving. We'd be driving by somewhere and they would be with some friends or something. They'd be like, "Oh, well, yeah, they're doing that job." And isn't that your husband? And she's like, "Thanks for telling me what's going on," Yeah. But,
No, it's the service above self. I mean, I've been a
I like that.
Rotary
I'm going to
Club.
write that down. Service above self.
Well, that's the Rotary ideal. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the Rotary
I'm
International.
familiar with
but
it.
Yeah, so we have the 4-way test. It's, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Wow. So say that again for those that are listening, because if you're listening, this is something to write down. And the really cool part is the Rotary Club's been around for a while, so it's not new.
Early 1900s.
Yeah.
Paul Harris started the whole, it's like a fraternity.
Wow.
So, but,
So what were those 4 things?
So is it the truth?
Yeah.
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Wow. Those are good pillars to have in place for whatever it is that you're
For
building.
sure.
I like to say to people when we're doing a deal, I like to have a win-win-win. I really believe in win-win-wins, and that's where you win, I win, and the client wins, or
Sure.
whoever it is that we're doing work for.
Yep.
And if we're not getting that, then we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to get it, because
Everybody's going to win.
everybody's going to win. And there's no reason
And it's
that
not
everybody
like
can't.
everybody's a winner mentality. It's like,
Yeah,
no.
no.
The 9th place.
We're not handing out trophies.
That's right, brother.
Yeah, we're definitely not doing that.
That's right. That's right.
But, I think it really is looking outside of yourself.
For sure.
And that's something, that your dad definitely instilled in you. That's something, my goodness, I'm just sitting here and I can see this Lapp Electric van in the background, powered by people to keep you running. That's service. That's what it's about.
And my dad and that's what we've gotten back to.
Yeah.
It's crazy. After 2009, 2010, that whole time frame where we were like really reeling, and we went down to we had at the least amount of team members we had was 25.
Okay.
And then we went up to 35, and now we're hovering around 32 now.
Okay.
When we went back to really, we're like laser focused on customer service.
Yeah.
And we don't do that much work with general contractors anymore. We're dealing directly with owners. 80% of our work is with commercial,
Okay.
20% with residential, and we continue to grow the residential side because it's harder.
Yeah.
Residential's not easy because you're dealing with the customer that's breathing down your neck, and
Yeah.
they're like right there. When you're on a commercial project for like 6 months to a year, it's nobody's really checking on. You have a foreman. And
No,
stuff,
I know what you mean.
What I'm saying.
It absolutely is harder.
So-
And you have the other big thing is, at least in commercial, you're dealing with someone that understands construction.
That's true too.
And so when you're,
Yes.
if you're involved in residential and you're building a home for someone, it was really interesting. My wife and I, we built our home in 2020. I'm really smart when I decide to do things. I pick the right time.
Well
man.
done.
Yeah, but I grew up in construction. I had been working in construction, and it wasn't a problem for me. But my wife, you know, and my wife she gets it. But it was like I realized, oh, you've never been a part of a project, and you probably never going to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And that is most people when it comes to. I mean, how many people do you work for that this is their fifth, office building that they're building? Like it's like,
Well, yeah. For sure. And think about it. I mean, we used to do work all in New York State. I mean, on our industrial side of work. I mean,
Wow.
we were going all over the place. We actually did a job in Brazil.
What?
Yes. Crazy. Some of these jobs that we did, I mean, we had a project manager that really, I mean, he was a big-time producer for us. He got jobs in West Virginia. We were all over the place. And I'm like, man, I loved that because we were growing, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. But I had no idea. I'd go to these sites. We did a tow motor manufacturer up in New York City, or New York. This was back, several years ago now. I was like, I walk into this plant. It's like a 500,000 square foot plant. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm glad you know what the heck you're doing because I have no idea this place is freaking huge.
Wow.
So we've been blessed with really great people. That powered by people
Yeah.
is what sticks
Yeah.
for Lapp
for
Electric.
sure.
So, yep.
So, talking through this process, you've scaled back and you've stayed at this smaller size as far as people go.
Yep.
And you've shifted your market and some of the things that you're doing. So for those that are listening, just, maybe there's a young person that is started out a business because right now in the trades, sky's the limit, man.
Oh, my.
You want to start a business, you can have work tomorrow.
My goodness,
I mean,
yeah.
and it's like, but you're not the first, especially in electrical work. You're not the first one that has told me that they've scaled back, told me that they've stepped aside from general contractors a little bit, but also scaling back your people in that regard and scaling back your projects. And why? Why scale back? What? There's got to be a reason there, and I think that's important for people to hear.
I think what we found, especially when we were in a lot of debt, like I was sharing, and we had to shrink.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a huge warehouse. We had over $1 million in inventory back then.
Wow.
Now we have like 150,000.
Wow.
So I mean, things changed, and we were just like, look, we asked general contractors. We just asked them 2 questions. We'd be like, how many bidders on this job, or how many electrical contractors do you have? And they said 4. And we're not interested. Or if we'd ask them first, we'd ask them, how many? Do you have the job? Do you have the project?
Right.
And if they said yes, well, then we go to the second question. Then we ask them about, how many electrical contractors. If they said more than 3, then we're not interested. And that's what kind of our philosophy was. And then we stopped getting.
So if it was one of those 2, if they didn't have the job,
Yep.
you weren't bidding it.
Nope.
And if they had more than 3, so let's talk about why. What was the why behind those questions?
The why was because we felt, I mean, like I said, we were in a lot of debt and we weren't getting paid very quickly.
Yeah.
We had to work our butts off to become debt free. I mean, we hired a business coach to work with us and stuff, and we got on this system. So 10 years into it, we became debt free. So like 5 years ago, we became a debt free company, and I believe it was because of those getting out of work. I mean, we still do work for general contractors and it's not. I'm not bullying the general contractors are great. We have a lot of reputable general contractors in Lancaster County, but we just chose it's just not. We're not looking for that $500,000 project anymore. We're looking for the $50,000 project.
Interesting. And can I ask? So you don't have to answer this. We don't edit anything on this podcast.
I get it. Okay, brother. It's good.
But like financially, in going after the $50,000 project instead of the $500,000 project, you feel like you've increased your profits.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell me why.
You know, the no job too small that you see
Yeah.
out there. That's what my dad actually came up with. That well, he didn't come up with that. I think he learned it at an.
But he was the first
conference.
Amish electrician to ever say it.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's it. That's right. Thank you. But the no job too small. My dad started as a one-man operation, and then he hired his first guy in 1970, and then he just grew. I mean, it just was. My dad was so well liked, and people started to get to know him. So he got in well with the general contractors, and then but we grew to a level where it was just like it wasn't sustainable anymore. And now, as far as for profitability's sake, we would have went out of business. We might have had to go into bankruptcy if we wouldn't have been able to pay down our line of credit and pay down all these things. So I think that the $50,000 projects or less were really laser focused, more customer service related, and they're willing to pay more because they're getting valued customer service.
That's good. That's good.
And there's not many. Well, yeah, it amazes me today still about customer service.
Yeah.
Just nobody's doing that. Just that little bit extra.
Yeah.
A little bit extra.
Yeah.
But that's what we want to continue to do. So that's one of our values: superior service to our team members, number one, customers second, and then our community third. So I want superior, not average.
So, you're in that situation, you have debt, and you're deciding to do less work. And you're saying 10 years into it, you became debt-free.
Yep.
So talk about that transition, because if people are listening here, it's like, so what did that look like? What's going through your mind? Like, what was you have this big job being dangled in front of you, and it's like, well, is it your job? How many bidders is on it? I'm going to pass. That had to be hard the first time.
Oh, yeah. It took a long time and especially a lot of our guys weren't really buying into it either, and I understood that. It's like they felt
so you
like
had people leaving at this time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, unfortunately, they just, but that's I understood it.
Yeah.
We knew, my brother and I, as partners in the business, as owners at 50/50 Partners, we had to do something pretty drastic.
Yeah.
And that's when we hired our business coach, and then we have a leadership team now of our general manager and our controller and the two of us. And we're lean and mean, fighting machine, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you always should be lean and mean. When you get fat and ugly, you end up expounding and just bleeding cash, and cash is the lifeblood of any construction business.
Yes.
We are we're not like the grocery store where you pay at checkout, and so I think that's really important. And I think the things that you're talking about are really important. If you're in construction and you're running a business, the importance of actually, working towards being intelligent about the work that you take on. And
it was sexy, though. I remember back in the day, I loved getting those $500,000 project, and I always wanted to go to Brazil. We were in Brazil for like 2 weeks and doing a job. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
But then I was like, it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And a lot of our guys didn't like to travel either.
Yeah.
So that's why we're laser focused on Lancaster County. 90% of our work's in Lancaster County.
Wow. Well, that's huge too. I think in building people and building culture is making it that they're not needing to be that far away from their family and their friends. And
Yep.
Because travel can be, and I get it, it's construction.
Yep.
So we got to go where the work is. But you guys being laser focused in that way, that's pretty smart. So.
Well, we're grateful.
Yeah.
Grateful.
So we reached that point where I want to ask you a question, and you can pass.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm going to judge you.
Can I phone a friend?
I'll judge. No,
Can I phone a friend?
No. Well,
can I call my wife? If you
I
ask
would
me
love to have your wife on this podcast. That would be great. I think that it would be a much different and more interesting conversation.
I agree.
So, the question, and you're not going to win $1 million here on this podcast.
All right. Okay.
So,
all right.
I'm just making sure that it's not my phone that went off. So yeah, here we are on our podcast, and I'm the problem guy with my phone.
All good, man.
I remember when my brother.
I'm easily distracted as well, brother. Trust me.
There we go.
Yeah.
When
all good.
my brother was younger, he invited me to this baptism for his kids, and he went to this huge church. And you remember Nextel?
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's I still have my Nextel number.
Oh,
629 number.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
They were like the loudest phones in the history of time.
I,
Yeah, and I had I was in my 20s, I think, and he had invited me, and my jeans were a little tighter back then, not because I was fat, but because I thought that it looked good.
well,
And so I had this Nextel, and I put it in my jean pocket. And when I was sitting down, there's no way you're getting it out of the pocket. And I'm sitting in the very front of this church,
That's great.
and it goes off, and I'm trying to, I'm like, I don't want to be that guy, and like the whole church heard it because it was Nextel. And the best part was I got it shut off, and I was like, oh, that's great. But then the voicemail was just as loud, So a few minutes later, it goes off. But yeah,
That was a cool device back in the day.
Oh my
man.
goodness,
The walkie-talkie, that was so
push
cool.
to talk.
Yeah.
that was great. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, really?
I know.
It was
That was pretty
fascinating.
sweet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we reached that point where when I asked you, I told you this earlier. I believe that people learn from mistakes, and for me, I've learned from mistakes that I've made, things that I've done wrong, and I believe that they only become mistakes if you decide not to learn from them. Failure only happens when you stop. And so I think it's really important to share things that we've done. And so what is a mistake that Tim Lapp has made that he's learned from, that he's willing to share with those who are listening? Something real that affected Tim in a way that he's like, well, because let me just give you some time to think, and I'll talk about this a little bit.
Yep.
For me, baptism by fire is like one of the best ways for me to learn, and pain is good for me, because when I have a mistake that is painful that I've learned from, I do not make it again. Or if I do, it's really rare. And it's like, it's one of those things that it stings enough that I'm like, I don't want to do that again. And so I've had mentors share those mistakes with me over the years so that I didn't make the mistakes that they made. And so what is a mistake that Tim is willing to share with people that are listening that maybe could help them learn so that they don't have to go through some of the pain that you did?
Yeah, well, I would say my mouth.
Okay. Come on. This is good.
So, I used to just spout out almost like my grandfather did. He would just say whatever's on. Hey, you're fat. Hey, and I know.
Wow, I feel
loved
very
him.
self-conscious
No,
right
not
now.
you, brother, not you. But it was
I am.
I know.
Everybody catch how he agreed with that? Like, yeah.
But he's like, yeah. He'd say, "Oh, you're fat. You're not. You're." He'd be just blatantly honest, but that's not the way you communicate. I used to do that too, and I learned kind of the hard way. It's like I need to. Does that really need to be said?
Yeah.
Does that really need to be said by me?
Yeah.
Does that really need to be said now?
Yeah.
If it doesn't, why say it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned the hard way over that. So I've offended people over the years, and I don't want to go into personal examples, but I know I have.
I'm not asking you to.
I have, brother.
Well,
So,
and I think that's.
and I've asked for forgiveness too, so I'm thankful that that they.
Well, that's
forgave
one
me
of the
for-
only ways
yep.
to restore relationship when you do that.
Yep.
I've definitely experienced that myself. And you talk about, am I the one that needs to say it? It doesn't need to be said now. I have a problem with talking. Meaning I don't have a problem with talking. Like, I can talk over people. I can, say things that I shouldn't say. And for me, one of the practicals that I've done that helps me with that is, I was in a meeting a few months ago, and it was like a Zoom meeting, and we're there, and we're at our conference table, and there was a couple of us on the meeting, and there was a couple of the other team, and they're going through things, and my team is there, and I'm voraciously writing, and they're like, finally, the one lady on the other side of the screen, she goes, "So Josh, do you have like pages and pages of notes?" And I just chuckled, and I realized that I was getting called out, and I said, "No." I said, when I can't keep my mouth shut, and I have something I write it down.
I do the same.
And I just keep writing and writing. And usually what happens is someone else says what I think needs to be said, or it really doesn't need to be said. And so that helps me as an outlet. And so I revealed to the client or the customer, whoever it was at the time, I don't remember, but that I can't keep my mouth shut. So
That's why I was saying earlier about keyboard is like the tool that I need. I take a lot of notes too. I'm kind of missing my notepad too because I like to write notes too. So yeah.
Let's see. I have mine in my pocket.
Oh, look at you. Well done, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it even says Blackline on it. So,
dude, that's good, man.
Yeah. So, so your mouth, that's an important thing.
For sure.
So if you're listening, thinking about whether or not you need to say something, do you need to say it now? And I would even go a little farther. Write it down if you can't keep it to yourself.
I think Abraham Lincoln was said to do that. I believe part of that whole Lincoln.
So just to
I
be
never
clear,
went through Lincoln leadership.
In this conversation, you weren't the one that said this idea about writing things down. I did. So I just got compared to Abraham Lincoln.
You did.
So
you're
okay. That's good.
You're up there, man. 16th president of the United States. Man.
I'm not going to forget that before that you called me fat. So, yeah. So, I mean, Tim, this is an investment. Time is an investment. You're sitting down here with me. We've been talking for roughly about 51 minutes, 52 minutes, something like that. What is your title at Lapp? Just so that,
co-owner, CEO.
CEO.
Yep.
So I have learned this over the years. CEOs, an hour of your time costs more than an hour of my time. And so time is money. And one of my favorite movie lines is from a movie called Under Siege with Steven Seagal.
Oh, man, that's solid.
And Tommy Lee Jones, when they're there and they're working to steal the warheads,
Dude, I love that.
Time is money on this job. Time is money. Like that's, a little shout out to Steven Seagal.
Yeah, man. Way to go, Steven.
Yeah. So why are you taking the time to have this conversation?
So I'm not the prototypical CEO. I don't call it a chief executive officer. I call myself the chief encouraging officer. I'm like Timothy. I think that's what God's gift to me was, the gift of encouragement.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to people, so you impressed me, young man. You did. I mean, when I met you for the first time only 2-3 months ago, I was like, this guy's pretty sharp. And you look like my best friend too, Matt Steller, that God rest his soul. But you just remind me of him, and you're very comfortable to talk to you, brother. So that's why the time I'm taking, I want to increase the encouragement in this next generation. In the trades.
Come on.
I mean, I spoke earlier about college education is not for everybody. It is for some.
Yeah.
I mean, all three of my kids went to college, but my youngest daughter went for marketing. But I'm like, my son is in IT, lives out in Pittsburgh. But my oldest daughter's a nurse, so I get it. You need but I don't know, the trades, to me, there's so much opportunity for this next generation, and the high schools in the area are starting to get it now.
Yeah.
In Lancaster County, they're getting it.
Well, not only is it the opportunity that's there, but I think what the world needs to come to a realization of is it's an essential.
Oh.
When COVID happened, we didn't stop working.
That's right. The essential jobs, right?
Yeah, the essential jobs. And that is, honestly, for me, that if there's one good thing that came out of COVID, it would be that I realized what is really, truly essential and what is not. And so, I mean, when you talk
marketing,
about that.
Marketing, right? It's not essential. It's not essential job.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Well, there's some on our crew that are listening that they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a marketing major too. I got my BS in marketing, everybody. A Bachelor of Science, that is, not BS,
Well, it goes back and forth.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think when we first met and we talked, and I remember we talked for hours.
Yeah, we did. About 2.5 hours, I think.
About 2.5 hours.
Our first lunch meeting.
First
blind date.
And that means you owe me lunch.
I do, brother.
Yeah,
that's right. I do. I didn't forget.
But we both believe in people. We both believe in people. Like, I mean, you have it on your truck there. And I would say that, at Blackline, we say that people have value. And why we do this is to communicate value to the people. And, you know, if you're out there and you're listening and you're driving to the job and you're a plumber, you're an HVAC tech, or you're an electrician, or you're an excavator, or you are a drywaller, if you are one of those people in a construction trade and you feel like, well, why am I doing this? I think that you need to remember that everybody lives in a house. Everybody lives in a building. Everybody, you know, we live in a time.
Needs to plug in their phones.
They need to plug in their phones. They need to, like, they're protected from the elements because of what you do.
Yep, for sure.
They live a life better than ever in history.
Yes.
Because of what you do. We are sitting here, and right behind us are Tesla power chargers.
There you go.
You know, and it's like, there. You don't sell those at Home Depot, and a homeowner puts it in on the weekend. You know, it's like
That's right.
The trades, they matter.
Yes.
And I believe one of the things that we're doing here and having this real and honest conversation, it is about talking about not only the opportunities that are here, but for those that are already here, I think it's important that we need to be speaking and mentoring into the next generation.
Amen to that.
Because I believe that they're desperate for it. Like Blackline, your guy earlier was Dave was asking me, or Shifty, or
Yep.
the DA.
Yep.
He was asking me, you know, well, what do you guys do? And I said, well, we do everything trades.
Yep.
If it's related to the trades, we do it. And you know, one of the big verticals that we have is marketing for the trades and communicating where the eyes are.
So marketing people do matter then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just saying, we do matter.
Well, I mean, you know, there's a company that we work with. I just did a podcast with them a little while ago, and they do stuff very similar to what we do. And they would say that they want, you know, in marketing, they want the people that they're filming, the people that they're taking pictures of, the people that they're telling the story about, they're the stars.
Yep.
And I think in the trades, that's what you haven't realized. It's like, I remember years ago, a couple of years ago, I should say, my son said to me, you know, I want to be a soldier, I want to be a policeman, I want to be this, I want to be that. And about 6 or 7 months ago, I asked him the question again. I said, what do you want to be? And he's been watching what we're doing at Blackline and watching and listening to, like, he will listen to this podcast. My wife won't, but he will.
That's cool, though. That next generation leader.
Well, it gets really, really, really cool when I tell you this. So we were driving somewhere, and I asked him, I said, so what do you want to be when you graduate? And he said, well, Dad, he goes, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I've been listening to different podcasts, and I've been watching different things, and he said, I want to learn a trade before I do anything else.
Wow.
And it was really cool because the legacy of the words that my father spoke to me, I didn't even say to my son, but he's like, I want to learn a trade before I learn anything else. And I got all excited thinking it would be an electrician, but no, he doesn't want to learn to be an electrician.
That's okay.
But he was like, I want to be about that. And I think my desire is through the conversations that we're having, and whether they're online like this or whether they're one-on-one in the field, whether they're in the posts that you communicate through your Instagram, your LinkedIn, whatever it is, it's communicating the value of the people that are out there doing the work.
Yeah, I always say, and I always told my kids this growing up. I was like, and I know it hit home when my oldest daughter told me that she wrote me a note after she graduated from college, and she said, you've always told us we're God's best, and so I'm going to be God's best. And I do see the value in every person, even though they don't see it in themselves sometimes. I believe in people as well, brother. Yep.
Well, and you say
that
you're the chief encouraging officer.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
I was talking with one of our leadership team on the way over here, and I said, I'm going to do a podcast with Tim Lapp. And he goes, well, that should be good for you, that you'll be encouraged today. And so you already have that reputation that goes out before you. And I think, you know, in speaking about marketing, I don't think I can ever say this too much. I've said this before, but, you know, it is important in marketing that we remember that we're promoting people's reputations, not building their image.
Well said.
Because an image is fake.
Yes.
A reputation is real.
Amen.
And so, and a reputation comes with accountability. Listen, if you're hiring us to promote your company or your organization, we're going to promote your reputation, which means you better be working on a good one, because we're not going to promote a fake image. We're about real and authentic, because in the trades, they know immediately if it is fake.
Oh, my, yeah.
They know immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the trades, there is no faking it. If you don't know how to wire it up, it's going to
gonna
blow up.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, I mean,
I did that before.
Me
It
too.
wasn't a major blow up. It was just but went
Well,
like smoke. And
you already said that you play an electrician on TV.
yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So, well, as we're coming to a close here on the line, I just, if you're the chief encourager, what would your encouragement be to those who are listening? That whether someone is thinking of getting into a trade, someone is thinking of starting a business, someone is, you talked about this and we really didn't dig into it that much, but what even those people out there that might be being invited or asked to step into a family business, because there's some dynamics. So what would be some of your chief encouragements as we leave here today?
Something that I learned at LCBC through Men's Frat. LCBC is Lancaster County Bible Church, it used to be called. Now it's Lives Changed by Christ. And I learned this through the men's fraternity there. They said, and I was in it for 7 years, so it took me like 7 years to get my degree.
It sounds like you and I learn at the same pace, which is really slow.
Yeah, I am a slow learner, for sure. But
I should have wrote that down.
4 things, brother.
I should have wrote that down.
4 things that I would say to this next generation that's coming up through the trades, or just to believe in themselves. Reject passivity.
Yeah.
Accept responsibility. Lead courageously. And then you can expect God's reward. That's stuck with me all these years. I haven't been to men's fraternity since probably, it's been 10 years, but Marissa tells me I'm doing okay with that. So rejecting passivity, accepting responsibility, lead courageously, and then you can expect God's reward.
So I think that I know what, rejecting passivity is. But the one that's getting me that I just want to see if you can kind of drill down on, what is it to lead courageously?
That's the toughest one.
Yeah.
I think to lead courageously is like to get up even when you don't feel like it.
Oh, come on.
Just like you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Something inside me says, get up.
Yeah.
You got to lead, man. You got to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. Just putting that one foot down on the floor.
Yeah.
And taking that one step.
I've heard it called a Spartan mindset. I read a book recently that had some quotes by Marcus Aurelius in it and some stories. And and in the book they were talking about, there was this one, like, I don't know, senator, philosopher, whatever, back in the Spartan time, in the Greek times, and he walked into the arena or whatever it was, where something was going on, and he walked over to these guys and asked them, all the seats were taken and nobody would give him a seat. And so he walked up to the Spartans, who were these like huge warrior people, and when he walked up to them, they all stood up and offered their seats. And he made this comment. He said, the difference between the Greeks and the Spartans are that the Greeks know what's right. The Spartans do what's right.
Oh.
And so it's like, I think that when you talk about leading courageously, be a Spartan. Don't be a Greek.
I like that.
Yeah. Well,
actually, though, I was in a fraternity.
And that comes from reading, by the way.
Exactly. I was in a Greek fraternity in college too. So I learned a lot of leadership skills there too. But yeah, that's a good point. I never heard that before. That's great.
Well, and I think that's the mindset that we need to have. We need to have a Spartan mindset. It's like when you read some of those stories, like, and you read about the 300 and things like that, it's like they didn't get out of bed because they wanted to get out of bed.
That's right.
They made themselves get out of bed.
I guess what really breaks my heart too, and I'm sure it does for a lot of people in the United States right now, is that this next generation, they need. I just hurt for them because they don't believe in themselves enough.
Yeah,
and it's like nobody. Even Tim Lapp can't encourage enough people.
Yeah,
This
Yeah.
next generation and just the suicide rate, it hurts me,
Yeah.
breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So
I'm right there with you. And
I want to keep encouraging this next generation because they can do it. They are God's best.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think, we're having this podcast here in June, which I believe is Men's Mental Health Month.
yes. Oh my, I think you're right.
And it's interesting in our organization. It's one of those things that it touches everyone. And in our organization, one of our guys, one of his best friends, it will be his second friend in less than a year that's committed suicide. And I think that encouraging people and the importance of, and I am by no means a mental health coach or anything like that, but I would say for us as encouragers, one, to be there to listen to people, and two, to encourage people to talk to people. If you're struggling with dread, if you're struggling with getting out of bed in the morning, if you're struggling with these things, don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're in a company or an organization, go to your boss. They might have a program or something where they're like, in our organization, we pay for people to go to counseling, and I am in counseling or therapy, whatever it is, and I have gone because I believe that we need those things. You should be doing that stuff because you need to be processing those things.
I too lost my best friend to.
Wow.
He decided to take his own life over almost 10 years ago now. And that best friend is the one that reminds me of him when I'm looking at you. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hurt for these younger people that don't have. They feel like there's no hope.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage them to say that there's hope. There's help.
Yeah. There's hope. There's help.
People that care.
Yeah. Well, and there is tremendous opportunity as well. Like, listen, if you are of the generation that is coming up in work now, listen, you are going to go so much farther and
Amen.
so much better opportunity. And, the news, the world, all of it, it does not, listen, good news doesn't sell, so they're not going to promote it. But I'm telling you, having lived through, we've lived through 2008.
Yep.
We know what dark times look
That
like.
was hard.
My grandfather lived through, and I was just telling someone this the other day, the Great Depression, and he would tell me stories of standing in a line with a bunch of guys, and they'd be like, you, and you. And they got money and work that day. And everybody else had to go home and tell their wives and their kids that they got nothing. And so it's like there is tremendous opportunity out there. And I'm not saying that your issues or your struggles are any less big of a deal. That's something, just recently I learned this where, oh man, I don't like when I have to be real about me on this podcast. But my son, one of my sons, I have a couple, he was struggling with something, and he was stressed about it. And, he's a teenager. And I remember, okay, so I tell you that I'm going to be real and that I'm going to be authentic. This is me doing that. I'm going to let you know something that my wife knows about how horrible of a person I am. He's telling me this, and he's saying to me and sharing his anxiety with me, and I have this thought in my mind, and I'm like, boy, you don't know what anxiety is if you knew what I had to deal with. And immediately this other thought comes into my mind, and it's like, you jackwagon.
Yeah. Right.
And I realize he hasn't experienced anything that I've experienced. And so for him, this thing, it's like, I heard someone say to me once that, if your wife dies, that's a big deal for you, and that's really big. But if this guy has his dog and his dog dies and he's never had another relationship or anything else like that is just as big of a deal for him as it is for you in that moment.
Yes.
And I think that's the importance. It doesn't matter what you're struggling with or what is that's going on. It's like, it is real and it's a big deal. And for those of us who think that we're more important than we really are, which that's me, by the way, if you think that's where you need to get your head out of your,
Butt ski.
Yeah.
Butt ski.
You need to pull your head out of your butt, and you need to look at the truth. And that is that everybody is struggling with something, and it's just as important, and it's just as big of a deal as it is for you, for them.
Yep, for sure.
So, yeah, for sure.
Powerful story, dude,
Yeah.
man. That's what, no, I love about you, man. You impressed me from the get-go, man.
Everybody loves stories that reveal how stupid I am.
No, you had me at hello. You had me at hello.
You complete me. So, oh, my. Well, Tim, I just want to thank you for stepping up to the line, having a real and authentic conversation, taking a risk and talking with us here today. And I don't know if you know this, but you're talking with however many people listen on the internet. So I believe that this is a podcast that is worth a listen. This is a conversation that people need to hear. So
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, brother. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for stepping up to the line,
Of course,
Tim.
brother.
All right. We're done. That's it. Tim, great.